This video is the result of me rabbit holing a subject about doomsday scenarios. So let's talk about sustainability and all of your ideas and beliefs about it. Let's put things in perspective. Now, I'm going to warn everybody here. I converted things from hectares, acres, square miles, square kilometers, back and forth a dozen times, and then found numbers that I wanted to put in human perspective by putting them in feet. Some of you are already just ending the video and downvoting. Let's go on here. A lot of the information you're going to hear is absolutely factual, and some of it is the best sources available that argue with each other because that happened. The Earth is covered with land and water. Someone's going to debate that in the comment section, of course. 70% of the Earth's surface area is ocean. That is a source of food, but not a place to live on for the majority of the population at all currently. 30% of the Earth is dry land, and most of it is not habitable, meaning it does not have the ability to have all the components nearby for what is referred to by me as 1800, like 1850 to 1950 style designation of, can I build a city or a house here and sustain a life? Habitable includes, can you grow food there? Can you get water? Do you have materials to build a building? Or do you have to haul everything in and you're not really independent or self-sustaining? That's the definition for habitable that we're using here. 1850 to 1950 range of pseudo-modern methodology that isn't quite as modern as today. My, how things have changed. And before 1850, things didn't change much at all for hundreds of years back. So there's a paradigm shift about 1850. It's not really 1850. And then in 1950, a big change happened too. But anyway, we're excluding Antarctica, Greenland. We're talking about habitable areas having nearby water, food, something to start off with, a grub stake, and then you move on. The world's total land area, let's discuss it. 14 to 15%, depending on where you look it up, is modified by humans. That means human beings have touched it. This could be anything from this week all the way back for 1,000 years, depending on who you're getting the information from and depending on what they want to talk about. I just want to know where all the people are. 12.6% is cropland. That's actually pretty static. I'm going to give you a quick one. We use about 7 million square miles, or an area that would be 2,450 miles by 2,450 miles across. That's a pretty big square. That covers most of the United States. That's the area all over the planet, spread out into little strips or boxes or whatever that we are growing in. There's 20 million square miles of potentially arable land, which is a lot. But we don't utilize it because we either can't reach it, or we're not close enough to it, or we're saving it. Also, that also includes, depending on who you're talking to, about mowing down every single forest, including the entirety of the Amazon rainforest, and just growing food. Because absolutely, literally, God forbid, we actually just stop overpopulating. Yeah, everybody's got an agenda, but I'm trying to weed through it. Let's go on. And also, I'm weeding through the other people that some of you don't like that are the opposite opinion. I have to get information that's valid, not just that I agree with. I want to know what the facts are, just like you might. So anyway, at 12.6% of the surface area being cropland, currently, that's useful. It's designated that way. It's isolated. It's not populated. Originally, I was looking at what the population is. Now I'm more interested about cropland versus population. 10% of the surface area of the Earth is considered 2 days ground travel to a city. Now that's an enormous number, or a really small number, depending if you're on foot or if you're on a bullet train. I don't know why they use time. If somebody says they're 20 minutes away from me, I ask them, are you at sublight or are you on foot? What do you mean? If you don't know why I'm making this joke, you have no concept of how long things will take. You're always going to be late. And I've also told this to people. I refuse to employ you until you look up ground distance in miles, especially if they're kilometer oriented. Tell me how far away you are, because far isn't a time. We're not using light years. Thank you. No, really, why would the World Health Organization use 2 days travel as a timing system? Anyway, The other one is 10% is inhabited and hold 95% of the population. Okay. But what about concentrated things? Because I was looking up concentrated things. 3% of the land area is urban land. Urban? That just means it's a city. Thanks for getting to the point eventually. And from that, I figured out that over the entire surface area of the Earth, approximately, because 30% land area, 1% of the surface area of the planet holds 99% of the population of the surface area of the planet. That's including the oceans at any one time. We have 75,000 recognized urban settlements, depending on which ones people want to recognize. Some places, they recognize as many as possible because they have a lot of little ones, or they only recognize the big ones, and then they'll kind of include the little towns. Some places, they count a general store and a gas station as an urban settlement, because that is technically urban to them. Other places, if it's the sprawl between Chicago and someplace else, that's not considered urban, even though it overtly is. Isolated settlements, that sort of thing. Anyway, there's population of 5,000 or less is 51,000, depending on who you look it up through. World Health Organization and the Monetary Fund. We got 9,000 locations that are 5,000 or more, but that could be 1 million people. Then we have 15,000 that are considered under 500,000 or 500,000. That means you could be including the little or the big. Like, why would anybody do it that way? These are the ones that are trying to count everywhere on the planet and trying to narrow down the answers when some places don't care. Again, it's lazy counters. Let's move on. Out of 8 billion people worldwide, 7% are in megacities. These are ultra-high density urban areas. They are not urban, but everything's like less than 6 floors. These are skyscrapers, large cities. Out of the whole population, ignoring them, half live in cities. Oh, okay. And 50%, the other 50%, are less than, they said 2 hours away, but it's within 60 miles, or just at 60 miles away. Less than 60 miles away from the city. Some cities are extremely large sprawls where, again, there may be 2 or 3 floors. Los Angeles is notorious for having a sprawl. Let's talk about ideals and experimental thoughts. If we lived in a 2,000 square foot house, that's bigger than 30 feet by 30 feet for a house. Maybe we'll make it the yard. So bigger than 30 feet by 30 feet. We would only require a square for all humans that's 760 miles across each direction. That would hold us all. That would be a box from the west U.S. North border on Washington state border to Canada, going across the Great Lakes, going down to middle Iowa, and then going back across to the Oregon southern border. That brick would hold all humans. And it'd be 2,000 square foot area for you, which would accommodate, if you're not aware of it, how you do this, for people living in various size, fairly small dwellings with infrastructure of roads and stuff like that, which underneath everything, everywhere you can, not above ground, you put all the wire, the water, sewer, electric hookups, gas pipes, whatever. And that would leave room for you to have, nuclear power plants buried into solid rock underground or something crazy. Okay, fine. What if we all lived in 1,000 square foot apartments? That would be a 30 foot by 30 foot apartment. That's not small. It's not. Seriously, if you think... Anyway, that would be a square that'd be 530 or 540 miles across each direction. That would fill in only Alaska or maybe Mexico, the majority of the area. Or the upper left-hand corner of the United States, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, chunk. Pretty big chunk. And you'd have 1,000 square foot apartments, not 1,000 foot by 1,000 foot. This would be a 30 foot by 30 foot space for you to live in. That's not bad. Depending on your standards and what you've gotten used to in life, this may be absolutely wonderful. And then you would have minimal infrastructure. This is more like you get in an ultra-dense environment. Or you could just stack buildings on top of each other. There's some parts of the country where people object to having buildings taller. You also find homeowners associations demanding that you have one house per square mile so that they can try to jack up rates, or make it exclusive environment, or exclude certain people that are undesirable, or just drive up the costs. And some of you out there are very militant about this. Let's continue. If we did that, what could we do with the rest of the land? I mean, just scrunching people together, or just finding non-arable land, like I said. The arable land, the cultivatable land, potentially, that's if you mow down forests and don't care about the environment, 20 million square miles, or a 4,000 by 4,000 square on the planet, feeding everybody. And putting everybody else in a 500 by 500 mile apartment building complex that's one layer deep, which means you could make it that same size and just make it 5 or 6 floors deep, which is considered acceptable by almost everybody, where you'd have cities intermingled with this area. It would not be very big. You'd end up with, if you're not aware of what I'm going here, everybody could live in the United States and eat, or North America, because we have deserts. Or if you were to terraform the planet and overutilize things with high technology, now we get to that part. Assuming you had quality land, we don't have 100% quality land. Assuming we have good rainfall, okay, unless you're going to distribute the water everywhere, you don't. Just like the electrical system, you have to have a grid. Long growing seasons, that's not going to happen except for specific parts of the world that are extremely lucky, like the Amazon rainforest being turned into nothing but farmland. You see where this is going, right? Land just for food to live year-round for a single human being. What is the surface area needed? If you lack technology and livestock and decided to go vegan Nazi on everything so that your population would be self-limited by surface area, which some people consider an ideal, and actually discuss forcing people to do this by law. Yeah, those are the radicals nobody's going to listen to. Everybody would need a 2.45 mile, a 2.5 mile by 2.5 mile square just for one person. That's hunter-gatherer mode. Or more accurately, gatherer, because they want to be vegans. And if you don't have good quality land to work with, you're going to be stuck with a limit. But what is that if you took the entire earth and made it nothing but farmland, where everybody could just be dropped somewhere and they'd build a shed, 10 feet by 10 feet to live in and just survive? Everybody would be about 2.5 miles apart, and there'd be 15 million people on the planet maximum. That's every square inch of land, including Antarctica, if you could make it work. That's Pangea mode. If you're not aware of it, Pangea, when the Earth was mostly just one big continent, was in the habitable zone-ish thing for everything being able to sustain people. There were very few deserts because mountain ranges hadn't been smooshed together as much, technically. How much space do you need if you're going to use 1880s technology, 1850s, and have livestock? It's actually 1880s, just modern enough to where you and I would be comfortable and not screaming too much, but you still die of cholera. You need a square that's only 1,700 by 1,700 feet. Instead of needing 2.5 miles, you're down to under 2,000 feet. You only need 1,000 foot by 1,000 foot if you use 1880s technology and don't have livestock. What? It's because you're just farming and you're just living off of plant material that you farm. The others are passively. This is active growing. Now you've gone from one person taking up 2.5 miles to 25 people per square mile while harvesting. It goes down to 500 feet by 500 feet if you use 1950s farming and ranching tech and spread it out evenly with your housing. It goes down to 144 feet by 140 feet, which is what we're doing now, using current technology to feed each person. That's just for food, though. If all the land was fertile, vegetarians would limit us to 15 million per the planet. But if you include a grid and intermix it and enhance all the dirt you can and stop cutting down the forest so you don't fuck up the entire planet and screw up the weather patterns for the rainfall, and actually start sharing and caring by sharing, water, sewer, and electric hookup and distributing the food as efficiently as possible, you end up with what we have now. Easier. Faster. But you can't go off grid because the grid is what keeps you alive. It's our blood vessels. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.